So we're going to be talking about cancer-fighting foods. And first, I wanted to review some of the terms that I'm going to discuss that you may or may not be aware of. So just to make sure everyone is familiar with them. So phytonutrients are specific nutrients that are in plants that are actually help the plants defend themselves, but they also have helpful benefits for human health. And there's thousands and thousands of different phytonutrients, and scientists are just beginning to uncover the benefits of all of them. But it has been shown that they help us in a variety of ways, including in fighting or slowing the growth of cancer. And then oxidation is any damage that occurs in the body as a result of free radicals or aging or just the metabolizing process. And then free radicals are unstable molecules that can cause damage in the body. So this next one, antioxidants, most people have heard of, but antioxidants are things that we could get in food or certain vitamins that can stabilize these free radicals, so it prevents the damage that can be caused. And then a carcinogen is anything that we are exposed to that could contribute to cancer development. And inflammation it's an acute process that occurs in our body, meaning if we get injured, our body sends a message to heal that injury, and that's a good thing. You want to have that kind of inflammation. But unfortunately, a lot of people have chronic inflammation, which is caused by different things like toxins in our environment, excess weight, poor diet, and that kind of chronic inflammation over time can lead to damage of the cells or blood vessel walls that may play a role in cancer development. And I want to point out too that this is a lot of information. So as I go through these slides, if you have questions, just go ahead and ask them as they come up rather than at the end, so that it kind of breaks up the talking a little bit. So first, we're going to just talk about cancer development. So cancer develops as a result of several different factors, both from genetic and environmental causes. And then age also plays a role, because as we age, we become less efficient at repairing the damage done to our DNA. So every time we potentially have our DNA damaged, that's a chance for cancer cells to develop. And it's been shown that on average, humans have about 800 hits or attacks every hour from various internal or environmental factors that potentially could damage our DNA. And it's up to our immune system to fix that damage before it mutates and becomes out of control. And it's estimated that the average American will develop cancer cells in their bodies 6 times in their lifetime. And autopsies reports have shown that 40 to 50% of people who died of non-cancer related causes actually had cancerous cells in their body during the autopsy, but just not enough to be detectable. So it's a problem that cancer takes years to develop, and more people have it than we think. According to the American Institute of Cancer Research, 42% of cancer cases and 45% of cancer deaths are attributed to lifestyle factors such as diet, weight, and lack of exercise. So one of the major components to stopping cancer growth before it can start, slowing the growth of existing cancer, and preventing recurrence is in eating the foods that will create an inhospitable environment for cancer. And the phytonutrients in plant foods, such as vegetables, grains, beans, nuts, and seeds, have been shown to provide health effects for people and be protective not against just cancer, but also major chronic diseases that affect us, like diabetes and heart disease. And the American Institute of Cancer Research also estimates that if the only dietary change people made was to increase the daily intake of fruits and vegetables to 5 servings per day, cancer rates could decline by as much as 20%. And there have been a lot of studies that have shown how beneficial these foods are on fighting cancer, and they provide protection right away. So it's not something that you need to have been doing for a lifetime to provide any protection. There was a study that followed a group of women that were instructed to follow a plant-based diet and do light exercise like walking for 2 weeks, 14 days. And blood samples were taken before and after the 14 days. And then the blood was dripped onto Petri dishes full of breast cancer cells. And it was found that the blood drawn after the diet and exercise change was 20 to 30% more effective at killing the breast cancer cells than the blood that was taken just 2 weeks prior. So if anyone's ever heard of the blue zones, there are 5 places in the world that have the largest proportion of people who live the longest, generally over 100 years old. And so scientists have had a lot of interest in studying the lifestyles of these people to try and figure out why in these specific locations do people live the longest. And what they have found is that most of their food sources come from plants. And Loma Linda is the only one that's in the United States. And the reason given for them being on this list is because it's the largest population of Seventh-day Adventists who follow a vegetarian diet, which would just indicate that more of their food choices are likely from plant foods than the typical American diet. So it's important to note, though, that we're going to be talking about certain plant foods in this presentation, but really all foods that grow in the ground and our plants are good for you and will have these phytonutrients. But the ones we'll be discussing are ones that have been shown in research to be really effective at fighting cancer. And because I'm kind of talking about plant foods, I just wanted to discuss the topic of meat. Meat does not need to be eliminated. It just should be an accent rather than the focus of a meal. It would be good to limit or avoid cured meats like bacon, pepperoni, sausage, and deli meats because these develop carcinogens in the body. They're actually classified at the same level as alcohol and cigarettes in terms of their level of carcinogen. And then also avoid cooking meat at high temperatures like barbecued and smoked meats because this forms heterocyclic amines, which fuel cancer growth. And there's a specific heterocyclic amine that is called PHIP that's been shown to have estrogen-like effects that fuels estrogen-positive breast cancers. And there was a study that followed women over several years and found a 47% increased rate of breast cancer development that was correlated with higher consumption of grilled or smoked meats. Additionally, meat consumption has been shown to lower melatonin production. And as we'll talk about in a little bit, increased melatonin levels, which you can measure through urine, have been shown to be positively correlate with decreased cancer rates, especially breast cancer. And there was a study done by Harvard University that asked almost 1,000 women about their food intake from 38 different food groups or foods and found that the only food consistently associated with decreased melatonin levels was meat, and that eating more vegetables resulted in increased melatonin levels. Does anyone have any questions so far? Okay. So now moving on to the cancer-fighting foods. So the first group of vegetables to talk about is the cruciferous vegetables. These fight cancer in a variety of ways. They help activate the body's defenses against pathogens and pollutants, which we all come across on a daily basis. They help your liver detox. They boost the enzymes that would detox your liver. They actually alter gene expression and activity of enzymes that contribute to cancer growth. So they change the way cells would express themselves. So it helps your immunity. They start cell cancer death. They prevent increased growth of tumors and reduce inflammation. And part of this benefit comes from a phytonutrient group called glucosinolates. So when foods with this compound in it are chewed, it turns into other various compounds, one of which is called sulforaphane. And sulforaphane has been studied a lot. It's found in these vegetables, mainly broccoli and broccoli sprouts, because it has been shown to have a very strong effect on interfering with cancer growth and triggering cell death. And then another phytonutrient that's in these is something called indole 3-carbinol, which has been shown to interfere with cancers that are affected by estrogen levels by turning estrogen in the body into a weaker form. And studies have shown that this also has the ability to stop cancer growth and trigger its death. And there have been a lot of studies mainly looking at the effect of mixing extract from these vegetables with various types of cancer cells in a test tube or petri dish, or looking at the effects of these foods in animal studies or human studies. And the studies have shown various ways that these compounds in these foods actually alter cancer development by disrupting its normal processes in some way. So it interferes with cancer's ability to grow. There was a 2020 article published in the Journal of Oral and Maxillofacial Pathology that reviewed a bunch of different studies looking at this topic and found that people consuming broccoli regularly, not even daily, but a few times a week, had higher levels of a tumor suppressor gene than those who had very few of these vegetables in their diet. And sulforaphane actually leaves the body within 24 hours, but it's believed that it triggers epigenetic mechanisms in the body, meaning it alters the way your genes express themselves in a favorable way. So it actually prevents future damage. An example of this is a study that looked at the effects of broccoli in cigarette smokers. So they took a group of smokers and divided them into two groups. One group was told to eat one stalk of broccoli a day. The other group had none. Over 10 days, the broccoli eating smokers had 41% fewer DNA mutations than the non-broccoli eaters. And then after the study was over, they then extracted their DNA and exposed it to other cancer-causing substances and found that the ones who had eaten the broccoli, their DNA was more resistant to the damage. So it continues to protect you after the fact. And sulforaphane has also been shown to be able to suppress the ability of breast cancer stem cells to form tumors. And because a lot of these studies are done in Petri dishes, scientists kind of wanted to see how relevant this is to what's actually going on in the human body. So they did a study where women who were going in for a mastectomy, they gave them broccoli sprout juice an hour before. And I should mention that broccoli sprouts, which are seen in this picture here, are 100 times stronger in sulforaphane than broccoli itself. So it's an easy way to get a lot of cancer fighting compounds. So with these women, they gave them the broccoli sprout juice. And then as they were in the surgery, they tested their breast tissue and plasma and urine, and they found the sulforaphane, they found the broccoli sprout juice present in the areas, confirming that the sulforaphane does reach the areas needed to help target cancer cells. And they concluded that you need about a cup to 1¼ cups per day to get the benefits talked about here. And then all these,
sorry, yeah. There's a question in the chat. I'm not sure who's monitoring it, but can I blurt it out for you?
Sorry.
No, that's okay. It says, does this also apply to genetic mutations such as EGFR lung cancer?
I'm sorry, my dog was barking. I had to let her out. What was the question?
Someone is asking, does this also apply to genetic mutations such as EGFR lung cancer?
So all of these foods would have the same mechanisms in place for cancer cells, meaning they have the ability to stop the growth of it. I'm not clear on the genetic mutation part, but because cancer kind of, it would still be impacted by these foods. So I hope that answers the question. Regardless of the type of cancer, it should still be helpful.
Okay, and then a second question. In order to get the benefits that you're describing with this whole category, are there cooking preparations that are better and or deplete the benefits that you're talking about?
Yeah, there's a specific compound in the broccoli foods. Broccoli sprouts generally aren't cooked, but broccoli, there is a specific compound that's sensitive to heat. And so it would diminish that compound. It wouldn't diminish the sulforaphane, but there's another one called myrosinase that would be diminished. That kind of helps, it works in synergy with the sulforaphane. So broccoli raw is best, lightly steamed. If you're going to cook it, you'd still get the sulforaphane benefits, but it does minimize the other cancer fighting parts. Broccoli sprouts, because they're such a potent source of sulforaphane and they're not cooked, and they would typically go like on a salad or a sandwich. That's an easy way to get it. These other ones, like some of them you have to have cooked and it doesn't hurt the cancer fighting power. Broccoli is really the most noteworthy one to try and have raw.
Okay, and then sorry, another question has popped in. Someone showed up late and they're asking if you're sharing the slides with everybody.
I think so. Can everyone see it?
Yeah, I think probably afterwards.
Okay, I can, yeah, I can send these out to anyone who would like it.
Okay, thank you.
Because we're recording this presentation, it'll be available on our website afterwards. So Maren can send us each of us the slides, but it's going to be available on our website too. So,
okay. Any other questions? Okay. Okay, so next is garlic and onions. So this is part of the allium family of vegetables. Garlic has the compound that fights cancer is called allicin. And then there's other sulfur-based compounds, and onions are similar in their makeup. Garlic also has added benefits of being able to lower blood pressure and cholesterol. And some people do take garlic supplements for that reason. It's also a natural antibiotic that can eliminate even antibiotic resistant bacteria. It's very helpful for the immune system, and numerous studies have demonstrated the ability of onions and garlic to help prevent or lower risk of cancer, as well as some studies that have looked at the effects of fighting cancer. There are several documented ways that garlic and onions stop cancer growth. They suppress mutation of cells that lead to cancer. They get rid of free radicals. They regulate enzyme activities that could play a role in cancer growth. They are shown in test tube studies, garlic in particular, of all the vegetable extracts looked at, was able to kill most of the cancer cells and leave the healthy cells alone. And while some studies have looked at the effect of eating raw garlic and the effect on fighting cancer, a lot of the studies, just like a lot of these other vegetables, look at garlic extract and fighting cancer. But there are some studies with eating raw garlic, and I say raw because we'll talk at the end about the effects of heating with garlic. So one human study showed that eating 4 raw cloves of garlic a week over the course of 3 years resulted in fewer blood cancers, while another showed that eating 2 raw cloves of garlic a week reduced the progression of lung cancer. And then there was a very compelling study that actually was looking at garlic extract, and it was published in 2020 in the Biomedicine and Pharmacotherapy Journal, involving rats who had a cancer that was so aggressive that it was not responding to any of the chemotherapy methods that had been tried. So the researchers injected the rats with raw garlic extract injections into their body cavity for 21 days, and then the cancer was gone. So unfortunately, we haven't quite gotten to the point of garlic extract being available, but garlic supplements of aged garlic extract can have a similar effect. Not quite as strong as actually injecting raw garlic extract, but taking a garlic extract supplement can help. So the bioavailability of garlic when taken as a supplement has been studied, and it can vary on how much is available, but the one that has been shown to be the most absorbed in the body is the aged garlic extract. So looking at cooking garlic, crushing or chewing garlic activates the beneficial compounds. So eating it raw, not everyone can handle that, but certain things like salad dressings or pesto or hummus is a good way to get raw garlic. Or if you do want to heat it, just make sure to crush it first and let it sit for 10 minutes. And then the allicin will activate in that time and not be ruined by the heat, because it's just very heat sensitive. And then looking at onions, researchers who have studied onion extract in cancers have determined that red onions in particular are especially effective at fighting colon, breast, kidney, ovarian, prostate, lung, and nasopharyngeal cancer by disrupting communication between the cells and leading to their death. And this is due to a specific phytonutrient in onions that's called quercetin, which is also found in broccoli and apples. And like garlic, the strongest evidence was seen when exposing cancer cells directly to onion extract, but eating onions still provides benefit. Okay, so next is mushrooms. Research has shown that specific compounds in mushrooms called beta-glucans have medicinal properties in humans that are very beneficial for the immune system, and particularly in slowing and stopping cancer growth and increasing the effectiveness of chemotherapy and radiation. Mushrooms have been shown to fight cancer by slowing the growth of tumors, regulating tumor genes, decreasing the ability of the tumor to form new cancer cells, and increasing cell death of the cancer cells. And they also help with the immune suppressing effects of chemotherapy by activating cells that increase good immune responses. They've been shown to have other health benefits as well. They can help improve cholesterol, they increase insulin production. They're also an excellent source of fiber, which in turn also helps with cancer by getting things toxins through your body quickly. It helps keep a healthier weight. And if mushrooms are grown under UV light, they can also be a good source of vitamin D, which is helpful for immunity as well. Turkey tail mushrooms, which is pictured here, is one that's been studied the most as far as cancer. It has been studied for other health benefits as well, and it can be bought as a powder or a capsule. As far as I know, you can't find it in stores to eat, but you can find it as a supplement anywhere or on Amazon. Japan and China have each patented an extract of turkey tail mushrooms for use as an anti-cancer drug in conjunction with chemotherapy and radiation. And in Japanese trials, turkey tail significantly extended 5-year survival rate when they followed up with these patients in cancers of the stomach, colon, esophagus, nasopharynx, lung, and breast cancer. So what they did is they gave some patients turkey tail along with chemotherapy. Some patients just had chemotherapy. And then at 5-year follow-up, the survival rate for those who had had the turkey tail and the chemotherapy was 62% compared to 12% for the patients that did not have the turkey tail. And then there was another study done on colon cancer patients that showed that patients treated with both chemotherapy and turkey tail had an overall survival rate 3 years later of 80% compared to 50% in the group who only had the chemotherapy. And then in China, turkey tail was shown to significantly extend 5-year survival rate in esophageal cancer, as well as increased immune status, meaning they activated more of their own immune system cells in 70% of patients with cancers of the stomach, esophagus, lung, ovary, and cervix. And then there was another study done on almost 300 patients with either stomach, esophageal, or lung cancer, where they gave them 3 grams of turkey tail a day. And it not only helped reduce their tumor growth, but it helped minimize the typical chemo-related side effects like fatigue, loss of appetite, nausea, and pain. The US has also conducted some studies. There was a phase 1 clinical trial sponsored by the National Institutes of Health where they gave a product made with turkey tail to a small group of patients with breast cancer who had just completed radiation. And the results showed that all of the patients had an increase in natural killer cells and other cancer fighting cells that in the immune system. And then all the other mushrooms here, although not really studied as much as turkey tail in terms of cancer, have been shown to have similar immune benefits. Some of them can be found in stores and eaten, and the other ones that are not really considered edible, you can just find as a supplement. It's also gotten really popular to add them to different health shots and probiotic shots or kombucha, especially things like reishi mushrooms. You'll see those a lot in the grocery store, and those are helpful too. Reishi mushrooms have been shown to be very helpful for the immune system. They're a natural antibiotic, antiviral, antifungal, and they help fight cancer. It's been shown in studies to help prevent abnormal blood vessel formations that help cancer grow and also inhibits cancer's ability to spread. And then shiitake mushrooms have been shown to help with immunity and inflammation. They have a history of being used to help with diseases that are the result of a depressed immune system, like AIDS, cancer, allergies, frequent cold and flus. And one study showed that after 4 weeks of eating a half a cup of dried shiitake mushrooms a day, the people in the study had lower levels of inflammatory proteins and increased numbers of T cells, which help with immunity. All the mushrooms have these beta glucans that make the mushrooms so helpful. The structure can be different depending on the mushroom and that vary in its potency based on mushroom type and the way it was grown. But even the mushrooms that are most commonly eaten, like button, cremini, portobello, they have been shown in studies to help boost natural killer cell activity, increase overall immune responses, and in mice studies, they've been shown to slow cancer growth and increase cancer death. Okay, so next we'll talk about the fruits. So looking at berries first, they've been shown to be able to counteract, reduce, and repair damage resulting from oxidation and inflammation, which helps them also be protective against the damage to the body from chemotherapy and radiation. They've been shown to help activate natural killer cells, and they've also been shown to help fight cancer by fighting inflammation, inhibiting the start of cancer cells, protecting against DNA damage, as well as slowing the growth or triggering the death of cancer cells. Certain berries like strawberries and can actually also suppress an enzyme that breast tumors use to fuel their growth. One study that was published recently in the Pathology and Oncology Research Journal looked at the effects of blueberry extract administered alongside radiation on cervical cancer cells. So when they exposed the cells just to radiation, 20% of the cancer cells were killed. When they did the blueberry extract alone without radiation, 25% of the cancer cells were killed. So it was actually killed more than the radiation alone. But then when combining radiation and blueberry extract, 75% of the cells were killed. So working together, it really was the most effective to do the blueberry extract and the radiation. And then cherries. Cherries help fight inflammation, and they've been shown to reduce C-reactive protein markers, which CRP is a test that you can do to see how much inflammation is in your body, and doctors will do it to measure your risk of heart disease. So cherries help lower that. And then the phytonutrients in cherries have also been shown to prevent and reduce cancer growth. They also naturally contain melatonin, which, as we mentioned earlier, has been shown to have significant benefits in fighting cancer. And some doctors are even recommending melatonin as a treatment to be used in conjunction with chemotherapy and radiation. And it's been found that women who have higher levels of melatonin in their urine have lower rates of breast cancer, as I kind of already mentioned. And then red grapes, there's been studies looking at grapeseed extract with various cancers, and it's shown that grapes had the ability to stop cancer growth, increase numbers of cancer cells killed, as well as inhibit an enzyme that takes male sex hormones in the body and turns them into estrogens. So it prevents that process. So that's helpful for estrogen-dependent cancers. And it was shown to slow the growth of cancer cells in prostate, breast, lung, stomach, and oral cancer. And then pomegranates have been shown to have antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and anti-cancer effects. Like strawberries and grapes, they are able to suppress the enzyme that fuels breast cancer growth. And there have been numerous studies demonstrating the positive effects of pomegranates against cancer development, particularly with prostate, breast, and skin cancer. But when studies look at a food with certain cancers, I think it generally can be assumed that it has the same benefit to all cancers. It's just what's been studied. There was a 2017 review of studies published in the National Library of Medicine and National Institute of Health that looked at the various ways in which giving pomegranate was helpful for cancer. One study found slower lung cancer growth in rats given pomegranate leaf in water compared to the rats who did not get that water. And then there was another study done on rats that found that giving pomegranate extract resulted in a significant decrease in breast cancer tumor size. So drinking the no sugar added pomegranate juice would be a close similarity to pomegranate extract. And then the citrus fruits are the last one. So like lemons, limes, and oranges. I do just want to point out that grapefruit often interacts with medications, including some chemos, and so that should generally be avoided unless your doctor says otherwise. But citrus fruits have been shown to be able to help repair DNA damage, and studies have found that within 2 hours of eating citrus fruits, DNA becomes significantly more resistant to damage. They're also helpful at stopping cancer at initial formation, at growth, and to trigger cell death. And these fruits have also been shown to correlate with a reduction in breast cancer development. Studies have shown that extracts from citrus fruits have slowed the growth of both estrogen positive and estrogen negative cancers. And then there was another study that looked at the effect of applying extract from mandarin oranges on a variety of cancer cells, including ovary, cervix, stomach, liver, and breast. And each type of cancer cell showed significant death and reduced growth of the cells that didn't die. And you can find these in the peels as well. So using a little bit of zest or just squeezing orange or lemon juice into your water are good ways to get that as well.
There are a couple questions in the chat.
Okay.
Do sweet cherries provide the same benefit as tart cherries?
You know, that's a good question. My research was on the tart cherries, so I would have to look into whether sweet cherries are as beneficial. So whoever asked that, maybe I could follow up with them.
Great. And then how much melatonin do they recommend?
So a typical dose would be 3 to 5 grams a day. I have seen some people doing as much as 10, but because of the effects it can have on sleep, I think it might be safer to do 3 or 5 grams, and maybe wanting to go higher to just talk with the doctor about that. Okay, is that all the questions? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so now looking at beans. So there's a few different reasons that beans are helpful with cancer. They have fiber, antioxidants, and phytates that all work together to decrease cancer risk as well as other health concerns. Because they add fiber to the diet, they have been shown to be especially helpful for reducing or preventing incidence of digestive-related cancers, such as stomach and colon cancers. And one of the reasons for this is because the fiber moves things more quickly through the digestive tract. Just the way our society is, a lot of our food is very contaminated with pesticides and other toxins. And so having that go through your body as quickly as possible is helpful. And then, as I mentioned earlier, good fiber intake can also help with weight management, which can lower cancer risk. And there's a lot of foods in this group, like chickpeas, kidney beans, soybeans, lentils, and white beans that have prebiotics, which is food for the probiotics that are in your intestines. So it would help them multiply. And so we'll talk about probiotics in a little bit, but they're very beneficial for your immune system. So anything you can do to increase those is helpful. And then another reason that beans help with cancer is because of the phytates. Phytates are a compound found in beans and whole grains and nuts and seeds that have been shown to inhibit cancer's ability to grow. And it's shown that they're able to suppress enzymes that cause cancer cells to spread, so it can help slow metastasis. And then a study looked at the effect of eating mung beans, which most people see as bean sprouts in the store, and showed that these inhibited growth of breast, cervical, and skin cancer cells. And just like all other plant foods, beans and other legumes have antioxidants and phytonutrients that help fight cell damage and repair DNA. Okay, next is whole grains. Studies have shown that the more whole grains people get in their diets, the lower the risk of developing type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and certain cancers, especially esophageal, stomach, breast, prostate, and colon cancer. The fiber, as well as the specific phytonutrients in whole grains, are believed to be the reason for the benefit. But I do want to point out that the benefit mainly is seen when people choose whole grains and not refined grains. Adding in the refined grains is really what creates a greater risk. There was an analysis of several studies that looked at the relationship between whole grain intake and cancer and found evidence that eating more whole grains lowers overall mortality from cancer as well as any other cause of mortality. A recent study showed that people eating 4 servings of whole grains a day, which would be, for example, 1 serving would be a half a cup of brown rice or 1 slice of whole wheat bread, had a 22% reduced chance of mortality during the period of the study compared to those who did not eat whole grains. And reviews of several different studies showed that whole grain intake was consistently associated with lower risks of colon, gastric, pancreatic, and esophageal cancers. And something interesting is that whole grain intake has actually been shown to be more positive against cancer development in the colon than even fruits and vegetables. So that suggests that maybe it's something about the fiber that's in these grains and the digestive tract.
There is one question about the beans.
Okay.
Are bean sprouts as effective as mature beans?
Yeah, so sprouting actually provides more nutrients than unsprouted. So anything that you could sprout is going to be richer in these nutrients than the not sprouted version of the food.
Another question was on the last slide. They were surprised to see corn. Is that the GMO, non-GMO? Is there any kind of differentiator there?
Yeah, so corn actually is considered a whole grain. Definitely, if possible, non-GMO. You know, the genetically modified foods that are present, corn and soy being the 2 main ones, the way they modify those is to basically fill them with pesticides through various ways. So if possible, it's always best to have non-GMO and organic when it comes to both soy and corn. But things like popcorn, you know, it's actually considered a whole grain snack. It's high in fiber. So there are ways where it can be healthy. Okay. Okay, so now we'll talk about omega-3s. So there's three main types of omega-3 fats. There's ALA, which is found in plant sources like flax seeds, chia seeds, and walnuts. And I do want to point out that flax seeds is especially helpful for estrogen positive breast cancer. It has a plant version of estrogen that doesn't act like our own estrogen in the body, and the plant version of the estrogen will actually bind to our estrogen receptor cells, meaning the own estrogen in the body doesn't have anywhere to bind to and ends up leaving the body. And then the two other forms, DHA and EPA, most people get from eating fish. For people who don't eat fish, taking an algae supplement is a good way to get omega-3s. And the nice thing about algae versus a fish oil supplement is that it generally will have less mercury and other toxins that are found in fish oil. And the Nordic Naturals brand that I have pictured here was tested to be the purest in terms of the toxins. So omega-3 fats have been shown to be important for reducing inflammation, which we've discussed. It also plays an important role in fat and energy production. It's helpful for mental well-being and brain health. And some studies have shown it to be protective against chemotherapy-related side effects, such as dry mouth, or for helping to boost immunity during treatment. And one study showed that higher amounts of omega-3s in the diet reduced cancer growth and improved overall mortality in breast cancer, colon, and prostate cancer. Oops.
Looks like we have another question. Are the fruits not mentioned as helpful for fighting cancers?
What fruits?
Meaning
like
the ones that aren't mentioned in your slide, like not non-berries or.
So these are the ones that there's just been a lot of research on, but as I mentioned at the beginning, really any fruit is going to have its own set of phytonutrients that are helpful. There are certain foods like maybe apples that haven't really been studied as far as cancer fighting, but they're still going to have some benefits. And the more plant foods that you have in your diet, the more helpful it will be for overall health. So in looking at this list, it wouldn't be imperative to just limit to these certain foods, because any plant food is also going to provide some benefits, even if maybe it hasn't been studied in terms of its effect on cancer. Okay, so now probiotics. Probiotics are the live bacteria that are in our intestines, and it's believed that humans have anywhere from 39 to 300 trillion bacteria in their bodies, and the majority of these are in the intestines. Of those, it's believed that there are 300 to 5 different species, and having the right types and the right number of them, you want as many as possible, has been shown to improve digestion and digestive related issues. But more and more studies are showing that it actually helps with overall immune function as well. There's also been studies showing it improves skin health, even can help with weight loss. And each species of probiotics is different. So getting a variety of different probiotics is helpful. So if you'll notice, if you look at a container of yogurt versus a probiotic supplement, they might have different strains on there. So getting it from a variety of sources is good. There have been a lot of human and animal studies showing that probiotics can actually have anti-cancer effects. Most of the studies have looked at digestive related cancers, but there is early research demonstrating benefit against growth of other cancers as well. So the ways in which probiotics have been shown to be helpful are by controlling cell division and growth of cancer cells. They either kill cancer cells or let out compounds that are harmful to cancer cells and limit their growth. They reduce enzymes that allow compounds in the body to become cancerous. They help stimulate activity of immune cells like T cells, B cells, and natural killer cells. They reduce the number of harmful substances in our intestines, either from foods or environmental pollutants, and they bind to and remove toxins from our intestines. There was a study done on rats where they were all given a specific probiotic every day for 3 weeks, and it was shown that this probiotic actually hindered activities of bad enzymes in the colon that would normally turn compounds in the body into cancer-causing compounds. And then another study was done in which mice were given a chemical that would actually cause them to get colon cancer. And then some of those mice were given yogurt with probiotics, and the mice who were fed the yogurt experienced decreased tumor progression and growth compared to the group that didn't get the probiotics. And then there was another study looking at the effects of a specific probiotic against different cell cancer lines, meaning it was mixed in with specific cancer cells to see how it would interact. So it was given on with breast cancer cells, cervical cancer cells, colon, and stomach cancer. And it was shown that in all cases, the probiotic strain let out substances that killed the cancer cells and did not harm the normal cells. And was there a question? It seemed like okay.
Sorry, I needed to unmute. The question is, I don't hear you mention ovarian cancer in your talk. Is that because ovarian cancer is less well studied?
No, there's a couple studies that looked at ovarian cancer. I'd say by far breast and digestive related cancers are studied the most, but typically from my experience with doing the research, I present the study as it was done, which you mentioned. There are a lot of pharmacists who discourage supplements of probiotics during treatment. And I would generally say during treatment, it's a little bit safer to have it from foods, just because the supplements have such a large number of probiotics, and it's the whole reason for no antioxidants during chemo is that it can counteract what the chemo is trying to do. So it's kind of the same idea with the probiotics as a supplement, but it's definitely still safe to get it from food. And also not just foods, but like those little probiotic shot type things you can do, or they have the fermented juice drinks, things like that. That would all be perfectly safe.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
Maren, there's another question in the chat.
Okay.
Which says, what number is high for vitamin C?
So usually anything that's going to be over 100% of your daily amount, and most of the vitamin C supplements, the percent of your daily amount is like in the thousands, like 1700% or things like that. So the amount in a multivitamin is usually safe, although there are some pharmacists who will say not even to take a multivitamin. If you were getting vitamin C in your diet, that's perfectly fine. You can't overdose on vitamin C in your diet. And the reality is you will urinate out any extra vitamin C that your body doesn't need. But if you're taking it during chemo, then there's just the concern that the chemo is acting as an oxidator and the vitamin C is going around and canceling that basically.
Thank you. If you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or you can continue to type them in the chat. I don't want to leave people hanging. Are there other questions? Do you have any recipe books you recommend with easy recipes to answer for cancer?
Yeah. Excuse me. Any plant-based book, cookbook would be the most effective as far as cancer. I tend to like books that have simple recipes like that, and also have a lot of pictures. So if I send out the presentation, I can also send links to a couple of the cookbooks that I like.
That would be fabulous. Thank you so much.